So first of all, welcome to Something Wicked DocuFest. This is our third year doing this. I just would like you to let everyone know what's your name, what your film is, and what you did on your film, first of all.
Perfect. So, my name is Marie-Helene Panissett. I'm from Montreal, Quebec, Canada, and the film is called Two Straight Girls at a Queer Fest. And it's a movie that I directed, produced, wrote, and did camera and sound and acted in.
So, first of all, I know you explained some of this in the actual film, which is the reason behind the making the film. But I
Mhm.
want people to know a little bit about another reason why you decided to make this as your feature film. Uh,
Absolutely.
I want to let you
Yeah.
explain.
So actually in Canada, we're very fortunate because we get government funding to make our films. Well, some people get it, and it's quite hard to get it. It's become more hard, as people, the means of production have become more easy to get. I mean, in terms of equipment, camera. So people are really knocking at the doors to get public funding because here in Canada, since we mostly shoot in French. The films rarely get to travel outside of Quebec, so there's not a big market producers here rarely make money with their films. It's culture that we do, and people go see the film, but it takes a lot more money to produce a film than actually get revenue from. So that's why we have government funding because we have this French culture in a sea of English speaking people. And so the thing is that since there are always more people applying for these funds, they set up new rules to prevent people from submitting their projects. And so at that moment, the provincial institution, they said, okay, well, if you haven't produced a film in 5 years, you can't apply anymore for public funding. And I had had two kids, I had been sick, and it was like, mm, mm, you know, I was like getting really close to 5 years not having produced a film. And so I said, I have to shoot a film, and I didn't know what to shoot. But then I had a short film that I had produced that had been that just got selected in North Carolina Gay and Lesbian Film Festival, which is now called Out South Queer Fest, but at the time that's what it was called. We're back in 2015. And so I had this film that was showing, and my boyfriend at the time had a Jeep, and I heard about another friend who had a pop-up tent. And I said to my actress in the short film, I said, okay, so we take the Jeep, we take the pop tent, we drive down to North Carolina, and we shoot a film. And so that's what the film is about.
Which is very interesting. I saw a little bit from the actual film that got into the film festival in your feature film. Was it just a two-actor film? Uh,
Yes, yes, it's called The Last Round, and it was actually for a contest that I directed this film that was going to be shown with a live orchestra. So we had a piece of music, and then we had to invent a film about that. And since I come from dance, I sort of imagined. I come from dance, and I'm a feminist, and I like playing on stereotypes to so that you play on the stereotypes in order to deconstruct it. So I had this image of dancing, but I threw a texture, and I thought of jelly wrestling because I said that movement, and also there was this new Sony camera back then that was doing extremely high speed,
Mhm.
which that was we're talking 2013. I think I shot that film,
Wow.
and so I wanted the dance to sort of have to happen through a texture. And so I had this idea of two women dancing, fighting in green jello, and at the end kissing. But it's a very powerful kiss because it happens in real slow motion, and it's filled with many things. But since it was two women kissing, I guess when it was submitted to the Gay and Lesbian Film Festival, it was selected because that's something that you rarely see. You don't see, outside of porn, more, and now you have more and more films directed by a lesbian or depicting lesbian women involved in a relationship, but it's still marginalized. And so the film was selected for that festival, and things have changed a lot in like 8 years, but back then I was like, am I going to be a fraud since I'm straight? And there was all this question also of, what type of words people can use, and was it going to be derogatory to use queer in the title of our film? And so it's all questions that Judith, my co-star, and I are sort of asking as we reach the festival. So
Yeah, I found that very interesting that you bring that question up with the people who are behind the film festival when you get there, and then of course you revealed the title to. Try to remember now. I think you revealed it first to the people at the truck stop,
yes,
which
yes.
sounds hilarious. I'm
Yes,
trying to
because
remember.
obviously they have this idea that, again, playing on the stereotypes, they have this idea that maybe the film is gonna be about us becoming lesbians, and there's gonna be this big scene between the two of us, and it's really, it's not about that, but the idea was also, the thing that's funny is that when we get to the festival, nothing happens, because it's all normal, well, extraordinary people, but normal, and so we just meet normal people, and all of our expectations of what a queer fest can be was like, well, it's
That's interesting. That plays really well with the film because since you and your co-star are asking those questions throughout the whole film, your expectations by the end of the film is like, huh. Now I'm gonna say that because I will never read what the films are about before I watch them.
okay.
I literally just have the title.
Uh-huh.
I'm watching the film and it's not exactly what I was thinking when I watched the movie, which made the film more engaging. As a festival director, I've decided I don't want to read what any of the films are before I watch them. It's a
Cool.
lot more fun for me if I just kind of go with the film, and hopefully the filmmaker tells their story without me having to know what it's about beforehand.
Well,
Uh,
I'm glad, because the title appeared at the same time as the first idea of the film was the title, actually, and so that stayed. Sometimes you find the title along the way or at the end in post-production, but really the title was there because we shot without a script. We knew this is why it's a documentary, because we're sort of playing our own characters. I mean, the characters are filled with our who we are because we're improvising. I'm playing a director, Judith is playing an actress, and it's all based on our life story. But we didn't know what was going to happen. And yeah, so that was, as a filmmaker, it's like really interesting to do that, because you sort of have to rely on all of your craft, the experience that you've gathered along through the years, and then you sort of throw yourself in the unknown and see what happens.
so had you done a film like this before, or was this a complete experiment?
It was a complete experiment, but it's funny because it was shot in 2015, and then we started cutting it during the pandemic in 2020. So,
Oh.
5 years afterwards, and it's interesting because I had gained experience in the meantime, but when we started cutting it, I realized that I knew what I was doing. It was all there. It's just a matter of because shooting the film, we spent $40 Canadian and $20 American. So actually, it's funny because my kids told me the other day, it's not true that you only spent $20 American because you brought us back some gifts. So I hadn't, so maybe it's $40 or so US. But then I did during the pandemic, we got some government COVID money. So this was like free money in a way. They just sent to some producers saying, it doesn't have to be any given project, just spend it on whatever film project you want. So I was able to hire a musician, hire an editor, and then, put what it needed to, we did a little animation in the beginning for the opening credits. So you know, this sort of gave a bit of production value to the film. The music is really, it's fun. It's in the surf rock feeling. So yeah, I was really happy about that.
Good. So that brings up another interesting question. Since your original goal, or at least the goal in the film, was to try and get it at least one theatrical
Yeah,
screening for it
yeah,
to be legitimate.
yeah.
How successful has the film been so far? If you don't mind.
Well, it's actually great because the premiere of the film happened at the North Carolina Gay and Lesbian Film Festival, which is now called the Out South Queer Fest. So there's a story right there, and it got picked up by producers reps over there. I got, you know, the email that you're always expecting. We saw your film at the festival. It's great. We want to represent it. So that was, and those guys are the ones who represented the early Coen brothers film,
Oh, okay.
Desperately Seeking Susan film, which, you know, in my youth was like the ultimate film, and Blair Witch Project. So I was like, wow, you know. And so they got me a US distribution deal. So we're distributed by Summerhill Entertainment. I
Real.
haven't it's brand new. We just made a poster for it. You know, I'm 50 years old and I got my face on a film poster, so I can, you know, I can die now. And in Quebec, it got released in a movie theater. It was a small release, you know, but it's funny because it was shown. The opening was on Quebec National Holiday, and because it's in English, that was controversial. And some people ask me why we shot it in English, because my first language is French. And I always tell them, well, because of the title, because the title appeared, because we were traveling to the States, but also because it's a documentary, because it's about us. The language barrier is just big enough so that we don't dwell too much in our own little problems. Because there's the language barrier, we sort of need to think a little bit before we talk. So we couldn't, like, those, you know, there are some longer conversations in the car, but they sort of always remain on a more universal tone than going too deep in our own personal, not interesting stuff for other people, in a way.
Okay. So
yes, so it was released in Canada, in Quebec, and released now in the States. We'll see what happens, you know.
well,
But
congrats.
it is a little, you know, a dream story, you know.
Yeah. And I'm assuming now you've made a profit after.
Yeah, exactly. Well, not yet, but eventually, you know, if we sell a DVD or we sell to, I don't know, maybe a Newbie or, you know, iTunes, or, you know, I'll eventually see a check.
Well, if it's successful with some of the other film projects I've heard from Summerhill, then you'll at least see a profit based on how much you spent on the film. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
So you brought up a very interesting something I remember seeing in the film. So it's all coming back to me when I watch like 100, 200 of these indie films. Some stuff just pops up when I'm talking to a filmmaker. The scene in the car with you and your co-star where you're singing the song. That at first I was thinking, oh, why is this scene in there? But that is like the perfect bonding moment in the entire film. And was that all planned? Or you guys just was this impromptu?
Well, it was improv, and when we came back, I was like, "Oh my God, I'm in deep trouble if we can't get the rights to the song."
Oh.
Because there was no way of faking it, and it's actually the first scene where you sort of like develop an attachment to the characters, because it's a song, so it's called Si j'étais un homme, which means if I was a man, and it's a feminist song, but it's a romantic song. It says, you know, if I were a man, I would give you flowers, I'd be romantic, I would, you know, call you every day, and I would take you to, you know, through the world. And but since I'm not a man, I'm not allowed to do that. So it's a very powerful song that was written at the end of early 80s, end of the 70s, early 80s. And I remember hearing it for the first time. I was 8 years old, and I was coming out of my bath, and my mom was, watching TV, and I saw this young woman. I think she was 18 or 20 when she wrote this song, and she was singing with her guitar. And I was like, I looked at my mom and I said, what does that mean if I were a man? And she said, oh, well, she's a feminist.
Yeah.
And then I wasn't sure if that was a good thing or a bad thing, but I knew it was important. That's the first time I heard the word.
Mm.
And so it was actually fabulous, because when the film was finished and when I got a little bit of budget to finish it, we sent a request to Diantel, that's her name. She's quite famous here and in France. And she said yes. And I got to meet her. She came to the premiere of the film, because now she lives in Switzerland, and we've become friends.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, because you had the subtitles, I actually understood everything that was going, the entire song. Which, like you said, I was like, that's like the perfect bonding moment in the entire film. And I wondered, was that like just kismet? It was like just perfect for the whole moment of the film.
Yeah,
Um,
well, it was a surprise for Judith. I hadn't told her. I had it in my playlist because it's a song I love, and it's sort of in my key. So, and since it's a song that here, everybody knows, and that holds a dear place in women's heart, then she knew all the words, and she's a better singer than I am, that's for sure. And so we just sung, and it's it's the actual singing that you hear. We didn't do it in post. We really used it.
oh, so now I'm trying to remember.
Oops, excuse me. Sorry about that. Let me just turn off the.
Mine is done the same time.
I'm so sorry. Okay, do not disturb.
All right, where was I at now? Ah, you lost my train of thought. That's okay. What was the most difficult thing about shooting this film?
The tent, the pop tent. That was, it's funny because we sort of didn't have a story really, but we had that pop tent that was really complicated to assemble, and so that was our main obstacle. And it was but that was also the comic relief, and the conversation piece. These two men that we meet at the gas station. It's because I was, the tent is hard to set up. Well, that's not that bad, but backing up the tent was the
Oh,
hardest part. And so we end up in this gas station, and we need to check the air in the tires, and we need to back up. And I tried to do it, but at one point, and I'm gonna break the thing, and then you got these two men that just appear out of, and that's documentary. It wasn't staged, and they help us pull it out, and so that was one point. But then there's other times where we do end up in a mud pit, and we have to back it up, and it's that was the hardest part. And traffic also, because traffic was pretty bad. I don't know why. And we arrived late at the festival, and yeah, so there was quite a bit of drama.
well, you mentioned the gas station, and of course, I have to mention the scene where you two are putting the bumper sticker on the the truck.
Yeah, because the film was also about promoting the film. It's a film about a film, and so we had done these bumper stickers, and that I have this memory of when I was a kid. My brother, my big older brother, who was very, like, he was a total nerd, but at one point I saw him do something bad, which was, we were in trip and we were at McDonald's. We stopped at McDonald's, and he took these ketchup little how do you call it, the little bags of ketchup, and he thought it'd be very funny to put them under the tires of our car, so that when we back up, it would spray ketchup on the. So I remembered, that was, to me, it was so much fun seeing my brother do that, because he was always so, stuck up, I would say. And so I had the idea that we needed to do something bad, And so I had this idea of, creating these bumper stickers with the title of the film. And I asked Judith at some point to go stick one on an 18-wheeler. And we were, we were worried that we'd get caught, but we didn't get caught.
Well, that plays into your whole bad girls Thelma and
Exactly.
Louise thing, which I didn't really think about till you guys mentioned it at the end of the movie, because I didn't read what the film was about. So, uh, when you guys was that an inspiration at all before making the film, or did that
For
come?
sure. I was talking about my influences as a filmmaker when I was in university. I was taking a class called Media and Gender. So it was a class about, reflecting on the representation of different genders on the screen. And back then they would tell us that, a film with strong women, the example of that, there weren't that many. There was like Terminator 3 because Linda Hamilton had a gun. And then there was Thelma and Louise. But, watching the film, you say, yeah, it's, about strong women, but it ends up in a ditch. It's like, what happened, if you put two women liberating themselves in a movie, well, they have to end up in a ditch. So the idea for Two Straight Girls was also to, have a road movie with two women that would not end up in a ditch.
Well, you end up in a small little one backing up the tent.
Yeah, that's true, but we make it out. Yeah.
Oh, that's very interesting. No, I it just the film overall it does lend itself to that type of theme, but I also like the fact that even it's a very subtle with the themes in terms of the queer background, and I'm glad you added the scenes from your short film into the ending because it allowed me as an audience member to actually understand how your film got into the film festival at first,
Yeah,
but it also got to see your co-star acting as well. So
yeah, that's true. Yeah,
since
that's true.
that's what she wants to do throughout the whole film is become
Yeah,
the major
her motivation is acting in a feature film. And there's one moment where I can reveal it. There's one dramatic moment after we've been in the ditch, where we're all really stressed because we're going to be late and we're losing the light. And I know I want to shoot a scene where we're going to be arguing. This is not in the movie, but as a filmmaker, I was like, we're going to lose the light. We won't be able to shoot that scene of tension. But we were really tense then. And so there's this argument where I tell her, she wants to quit the whole thing. She wants to go back home. And I'm like, well, you know, this is your dream come true. We're shooting a film. You're a co-star. What are you going to do about, you know, you can't leave? And that's when she says that this is a bullshit film. And so, so that stays, the fact that it's a really low budget film. And actually, when the producers rep approached me, they said, "Well, this is the best bullshit film ever." So it's really, yeah, that maybe it's the best compliment that you can give to a filmmaker.
Yeah, well, you need that scene in the movie for people to feel sympathy by the time they get to, by the time you get to the film festival and you see the actually resolution of everything come to fruition. Uh, which I actually enjoyed because you spoke with uh the the people from the film festival,
Yeah.
and that was a great way to end the film and to also show audiences that what you created is something that can transcend, I guess, because you're both your film is your short film first. Your short film is something that can be appreciated by the gay, lesbian, queer community, but it's made by straight women, and anyone can enjoy the actual short film. But watching the journey from you going to that festival is also another great story with two straight women that can be enjoyed by all audiences. I don't want to like differentiate the audiences.
But it's as a festival organizer, it must be really interesting, yes, to ask those questions. Are you a niche festival or do you appeal to anybody across? And that's really questions that we ask ourselves these days with the multiplication of platforms, and who do you appeal to? That's I think that's really important, and I try to appeal to to as many people as possible while remaining really personal, because
Mhm.
I believe that the personal can be political, and sometimes it's the way I approach things. I like to approach through my own feelings and my own personal history, and then, because the film also deals with mental health,
Mhm.
and I could decide to grasp that subject, by doing a really like a poignant film, but I decided to approach it in a lighter manner. I find that humor sometimes is a good way to get into people's head without them feeling, too attacked by the subject. I'm actually preparing a feature film these days about, again, it's about women, and it's about women's right to choose. And it's a comedy again, but it's about one woman who wears the full face Islamic veil, and another one who does cosmetic surgery, and they end up in an elevator, and they have to speak because they have no choice to learn to talk to each other and maybe realize that they have more in common than differences.
Oh,
So, yeah. So we're starting to shoot in 12 days actually.
oh, okay.
And
Because
this one is going to be have a little bit more budget because we need to build an elevator in studio, and but it's strange, it's funny how with what's happening in the States these days with abortion, the fact that the ban on abortion, what's happening in Iran with women, contesting the fact that they want to be able to choose, if they wear the veil or not. And we sort of realize that this discrimination against women knows no boundaries in a way. It's not so much about religion. It's more about controlling the
Mhm.
body of women, the bodies of women. And so that again, through comedy, I try to bring awareness to these issues.
Well, that's a good point. I was going to ask you about what your project is, and you already told me that.
I guess I just answered that.
Right. I also wanted to point out that because you don't dwell on the mental health issues in your film as much as someone else might have,
Hmm.
it becomes a part of your character and not like this theme that you're trying to hammer across the audience about
Exactly.
mental health.
Exactly.
And I appreciate that because I'm so busy enjoying the journey of you two,
Hmm.
your own conflicts as you're getting down to the film festival. I think if you had gone in that route by playing more to the mental health issues, it would have been it would have done something to the kind of the atmosphere and mood of the film.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. I think, I mention it because, as a part of the white dominant culture, I do have my own challenges, as a person with bipolar disorder, which sort of puts me in a position where I feel that I'm able to relate to people who are discriminated against. It's so there's this connection that I feel, and which is why I sort of allowed myself to use the word queer in the title. It's you know pe- people with mental health problems were discriminated during the Second World War. They were also in the camps, and having gone through the mental hospitals twice, I can tell you it's very bad. It's very, very bad how, what happens in those units and in those wards, and then how people react to you. And so, you're sort of like, you, you sort of hit rock bottom then, because there's the disease is something, but then the stigmatization and the discrimination is pretty bad after that. So, I decided to talk about it. I prefer talking about it than, dismissing it. And I think it can create bridges between communities to, if we share our own experience.
Well, with that, I would like to say it has been a pleasure talking to you about you and your film.
Such a pleasure talking to you.
Like to know, is there anything you would like to leave the audiences in regards to your film itself or your experiences making this film?
Well, if fellow filmmakers are going to watch it, I would say trust your instinct, because Sometimes we write and we rewrite and we rewrite and we listen to everybody telling us, oh, well, your script should be about that. And, everybody's a filmmaker all of a sudden. And so if you sort of know your craft, trust your instinct, and don't be afraid to improvise and let characters improvise. So that would be to fellow filmmakers, and to just general audience, I would say, don't hesitate to let yourself be surprised, and realize that sometimes you are prejudiced even if you didn't think you were. And so, let yourself be surprised, and don't be upset if you realize that you were prejudiced, but then use that as an experience to grow as a person.
Mm. Oh, I have to ask this too. One more question. Is there just about as much footage left on the cutting room floor for this film as that was in the film itself?
Actually, not that much, because we were shooting and I was building the script in my head as we were going along. I was sort of editing in my head as well, and I did hire an editor because I thought that was where I was crossing the line of doing everything. But there wasn't that much. There were those conversations in the car were longer than they are in the film, because I was trying to get my co-star to say things, and sometimes she would resist. And so sometimes it took quite a while to get to that line that I wanted her to say, because of course I couldn't tell her in advance, or else it wouldn't be natural.
Okay. Yeah, I just wondering that. My thing is, because I've never shot a movie like that. I don't know how much footage you end up shooting that no one ever sees based on how much they actually.
And I think we had like 10 hours of shooting. So it wasn't that much to get a 90-minute film, Sometimes, when you shoot fiction, well, when you shoot documentary, usually you get like 30 hours or so to make a feature. So it's, it is documentary, but it's also part fiction. I call it, it's like a auto-fiction in a way, there's that genre, it exists more in literature, the auto-fiction book story, but in a way, it does have its roots in television shows like Seinfeld, or even Woody Allen's films. That even though it's we don't say it that much anymore, but I was influenced by Woody Allen for sure. And I think it was a bit new for a woman to do that, to sort of have the nerves to say, oh, well, my story is interesting too. So now we have it a little bit more. There was with the series Girls, where you have women playing a bit their own character, but it is relatively rare.
Okay. Well, I definitely look forward to seeing your next film. And I wish this film nothing but success. But you've already got a distributor, so it's like that's the whole battle right there.
Yeah, well, then you want people to see it and have fun enjoying it. That's what I want. And it's funny because it's a totally spontaneous film, and that's what people get, is a spontaneous response. So I did my job.
Well, thank you for joining us at Something Wicked.
Thank you so much for having it. When is it going to be screened?
What's it? February 25th, 26th.
25th, 26th. I'll be shooting these days, but I'll try to check out the rest of the program, because I'm sure it's exciting and interesting.
Yes, and like I said, we wish this film nothing but more success in multiple film festivals before people can be able to stream it and see it everywhere.
Thank you so much. Have a great festival.
All right. You have a good day.
Bye-bye.